Atticus had just returned home from a long day at work when his wife, Emma, dropped a bombshell on him. "I invited Alex to join us for dinner tonight," she casually mentioned as she stirred a pot on the stove. Atticus froze, his mind racing to make sense of what he had just heard. Alex, Emma's co-worker and rumored love interest, was coming to their home for dinner. The invitation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications and hidden meanings. As Atticus tried to process the news, a whirlwind of emotions swept through him. Confusion, anger, and disbelief warred within him, each vying for dominance. How could Emma do this to him? Had their marriage really deteriorated to the point where she felt the need to bring her lover into their home? The weight of betrayal settled on Atticus's shoulders, threatening to crush him under its burden. Despite his shock and hurt, Atticus knew he had to maintain his composure. He couldn't let Emma see how deeply her actions had wounded him. With a forced smile, he nodded and muttered something about looking forward to meeting Alex. Inside, however, a storm raged, tearing at the foundations of trust and love that had once defined their relationship. As the minutes ticked by and the sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, Atticus braced himself for the confrontation that awaited him at the dinner table. Little did he know that this unexpected guest would unravel the carefully constructed facade of his marriage, laying bare the cracks and fissures that had been hidden beneath the surface for far too long. The atmosphere in the dining room was thick with tension as the evening unfolded. The clinking of silverware against plates seemed unusually loud, punctuating the strained silence that enveloped the room. Atticus could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air, casting a shadow over what was supposed to be a pleasant family dinner. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the faces of the three individuals seated at the table. Emma's usually warm and inviting smile was replaced by a look of apprehension, her eyes darting nervously between Atticus and Alex. Atticus, normally the picture of composure, appeared visibly unsettled, his hands fidgeting with his napkin as he struggled to maintain his facade of calm. Across from them, Alex sat with an inscrutable expression, his gaze fixed on his plate as he methodically picked at his food. The tension emanating from him was palpable, adding to the already charged atmosphere in the room. It was clear that his presence was a catalyst for the underlying turmoil that had been simmering beneath the surface for some time. As the evening wore on, the strained conversation ebbed and flowed, punctuated by awkward pauses and forced pleasantries. Each word spoken felt like a carefully constructed facade, masking the true emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. The clashing emotions of betrayal, confusion, and resentment hung heavy in the air, threatening to suffocate all those present. Despite the elegant table setting and the carefully prepared meal, the dinner felt more like a battlefield than a gathering of loved ones. The tension in the air was a palpable presence, casting a shadow over the room and serving as a stark reminder of the fragile nature of relationships and the secrets that can unravel them. Atticus sat at the dinner table, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Confusion and betrayal battled within him, each vying for dominance over his thoughts and feelings. How could Emma, his beloved wife, have brought her lover into their home, into their sacred space? The very idea seemed unfathomable, yet here he was, faced with the harsh reality of her actions. As he stole glances at Emma and her lover, a wave of disbelief washed over Atticus. He had always trusted her implicitly, never once doubting her loyalty or commitment to their marriage. But now, as he watched her interact with another man in such an intimate setting, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal creeping into his heart. Questions swirled in Atticus's mind, each more painful than the last. How long had this been going on? Had their entire marriage been a lie? Did Emma ever truly love him, or was he simply a convenient placeholder until someone better came along? The weight of these uncertainties bore down on him, threatening to suffocate him with their sheer magnitude. Despite the turmoil raging within him, Atticus knew he had to maintain his composure. He couldn't let Emma or her lover see the extent of his inner turmoil, he had to keep up appearances, at least for now. But behind his stoic facade, a storm raged, tearing at the very fabric of his being. Betrayal cut deep, slicing through the trust and love that had once bound Atticus and Emma together. The foundation of their marriage now lay shattered at his feet, the pieces scattered irreparably across the dinner table. And as Atticus grappled with the harsh reality of his wife's infidelity, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Emma sat at the dinner table, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to maintain a composed facade. Her heart was racing, and her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, she felt a surge of exhilaration at finally being able to openly acknowledge her love for Alex. On the other hand, she was consumed by guilt and fear over the deception she had woven into the fabric of her marriage. As she stole a glance at Atticus, her husband of 10 years, Emma's heart ached at the hurt and confusion she saw in his eyes. She had never intended to hurt him, never meant for things to spiral out of control the way they had. But now, faced with the reality of her actions laid bare before them, Emma knew that there was no turning back. The weight of her secret had grown heavier with each passing day, each stolen moment with Alex adding another layer of deceit to the fragile foundation of her marriage. Emma had convinced herself that she was doing the right thing by keeping her affair hidden, that she was sparing Atticus the pain of knowing the truth. But now, as she sat in silence, the truth staring back at her from across the table, Emma realized the extent of the damage she had wrought. Love and deception had become intertwined in Emma's life, blurring the lines between right and wrong, desire and duty. She loved Atticus, of that there was no doubt. He had been her rock, her partner in life, the father of their children. But Alex had awakened something in her, a passion and intensity that had long lain dormant beneath the surface of her carefully curated existence. As the dinner conversation ebbed and flowed around her, Emma's mind raced with questions and doubts. How had she let things come to this? How could she reconcile the conflicting desires that warred within her heart? And most importantly, what would be the cost of her choices, not just for herself but for those she held most dear? In the midst of the turmoil that threatened to engulf her, Emma knew that a decision loomed on the horizon. She could no longer hide behind the veil of deception, could no longer pretend that her actions had no consequences. Love and deception had brought her to this crossroads, and now she had to choose which path to follow, the familiar comfort of the known, or the uncertain allure of the forbidden. As the evening wore on, Emma's dilemma only deepened, the weight of her choices pressing down on her like a leaden shroud. Love and deception had brought her to this moment, and now she had to face the consequences of her actions, whatever they may be. As the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the unexpected guest, the atmosphere in the dining room shifted palpably. Atticus and Emma exchanged a quick glance, their eyes betraying a mix of apprehension and resignation. Alex, Emma's lover, stood at the threshold, a hesitant smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the scene before him. The tension in the room was thick, suffocating almost, as everyone grappled with the unspoken truth that hung heavy in the air. Atticus felt a surge of conflicting emotions wash over him as he watched Alex step into their home. Betrayal, anger, and a tinge of curiosity warred within him, each vying for dominance. How could Emma have brought her lover to their dinner table, exposing their carefully constructed facade to such scrutiny? The realization that their marriage was not as solid as he had believed hit Atticus with a force that left him reeling. Emma, on the other hand, felt a wave of guilt wash over her as she met Alex's gaze. She had never intended for things to unravel in this manner, for her secret life to collide so dramatically with her carefully curated domestic sphere. The weight of her deception bore down on her, threatening to crush her under its burden. How had she let things spiral out of control to this extent? Alex, caught in the middle of this domestic drama, felt a mix of sympathy and discomfort as he observed the strained dynamics at play. He had never wanted to cause such upheaval in Atticus and Emma's lives, yet here he was, an unwitting catalyst for their confrontation. The unspoken truth that had lingered between them for so long was now laid bare, raw, and exposed for all to see. As the awkward silence stretched on, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery and the occasional forced small talk, it became clear that this family dinner had taken an unexpected turn. The carefully constructed facade of normalcy had crumbled, revealing the cracks and fissures that had long been hidden beneath the surface. Atticus, Emma, and Alex sat at the table, each lost in their own thoughts, grappling with the fallout of this revelation. In that moment, Atticus faced a pivotal decision: to confront the truth head-on or to bury it beneath layers of denial and deceit. Emma, racked with guilt, awaited his response with bated breath, knowing that the fate of their marriage hung in the balance. And Alex, a silent observer to this domestic drama, wondered what role he would play in the resolution of this tangled web of love and betrayal. As the evening wore on, the weight of unspoken truths and unexpressed emotions hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow over the once peaceful dinner table. Atticus, Emma, and Alex found themselves caught in a web of their own making, each grappling with the consequences of their choices and actions. The dinner that was meant to be a simple gathering had turned into a crucible of emotions, forcing them to confront the complexities of love, deception, and betrayal. The tension in the room was palpable, suffocating even the faintest attempts at conversation. The clinking of silverware against plates echoed loudly in the awkward silence that enveloped the dining table. Atticus could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air, each passing moment adding to the discomfort that seemed to grow with every breath. Emma sat rigidly in her chair, her eyes fixed on her plate as if the food before her held the answers to the turmoil that had engulfed their once peaceful family dinner. She stole furtive glances at Atticus, searching for any sign of understanding or forgiveness in his expression, but found only a mask of stoic resolve that betrayed nothing of the storm raging within him. Alex, the unexpected guest whose presence had shattered their carefully constructed facade of normalcy, sat awkwardly at the table, his discomfort mirroring that of the rest of the family. He shifted in his seat, his eyes darting nervously between Atticus and Emma, as if unsure of his place in the unfolding drama that threatened to consume them all. The silence stretched on, punctuated only by the occasional clearing of throats or the sound of someone shifting in their chair. Each passing second felt like an eternity, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air like a dark cloud that refused to dissipate. Atticus finally broke the silence, his voice low and controlled, betraying none of the turmoil that churned within him. "Well, this certainly wasn't how I expected the evening to go," he said, his words cutting through the tension like a knife. Emma flinched at the coldness in his tone, a stark contrast to the warmth and affection that had once defined their relationship. The awkwardness of the moment seemed to intensify, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on them like a heavy burden that threatened to crush them all. In that moment, it became clear that their family dinner had been irrevocably turned upside down, the fragile facade of normalcy shattered beyond repair. And so they sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts and regrets, the awkwardness of the moment hanging between them like an insurmountable barrier that seemed to grow with each passing moment. The dinner that was meant to be a simple gathering of family had become a crucible of emotions, a test of their bonds and loyalties that none of them had been prepared to face. Atticus sat at the dinner table, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. On one hand, he felt a surge of anger and betrayal at the sight of his wife, Emma, sitting across from him with her lover, Alex. The mere thought of their secret affair being brought into their home filled him with a sense of humiliation and disbelief. On the other hand, a part of him wanted to maintain a facade of normalcy, to pretend that everything was fine and avoid the inevitable confrontation that loomed before him. As he observed the interactions between Emma and Alex, Atticus struggled to contain the turmoil brewing within him. Should he confront them right then and there, exposing their deceit and facing the consequences head-on? Or should he choose the path of concealment, burying his feelings deep within and pretending that he was oblivious to the betrayal unfolding before his eyes? The weight of his decision hung heavy in the air, suffocating him with each passing moment. Atticus knew that whatever choice he made would have far-reaching implications for his marriage, his family, and his own sense of self. The thought of confronting Emma and Alex filled him with a mix of dread and determination, while the idea of concealing his emotions seemed like a temporary reprieve from the inevitable chaos that would follow. As the dinner progressed, Atticus found himself at a crossroads, torn between his desire for honesty and his fear of the unknown. Should he speak up and demand answers, risking the stability of his marriage and the harmony of his family? Or should he keep silent, burying his pain and allowing the facade of normalcy to continue unchallenged? In the end, Atticus knew that he could not avoid the inevitable confrontation forever. The truth would eventually come to light, whether he chose to confront it head-on or bury it deep within himself. With a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Atticus made his decision, knowing that whatever lay ahead, it would be a dinner to remember for all the wrong reasons. Emma sat at the dinner table, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to maintain a composed facade. The weight of guilt bore down on her shoulders, threatening to crush her under its heavy burden. She stole a glance at Atticus, her husband of 10 years, sitting across from her with a look of confusion and hurt etched on his face. How had it come to this? How had she let things spiral out of control to the point where she was now faced with the consequences of her actions? It had all started innocently enough, a chance encounter at a work event that had quickly escalated into something more. Alex had been charming, attentive, everything that Emma had been missing in her marriage to Atticus. She had convinced herself that it was just a fling, a temporary escape from the monotony of her everyday life. But as the weeks turned into months, she found herself falling deeper and deeper into a web of lies and deceit. Now, as she sat at the dinner table with her lover by her side, Emma knew that the time for secrets was over. The truth had a way of coming to light, no matter how hard one tried to bury it. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. It was time to come clean, to face the consequences of her actions head-on. "Atticus," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to tell you." The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating her with their weight. She saw the flicker of realization in Atticus's eyes, the dawning comprehension of what she was about to confess. "I've been seeing someone," she blurted out, the words tumbling out in a rush. "His name is Alex, and I don't know how it happened, but it did. I'm so sorry, Atticus. I never meant for any of this to happen." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of Atticus's sharp intake of breath. Emma felt the tears welling up in her eyes, the guilt and shame threatening to consume her whole. She had betrayed the man she had vowed to love and cherish, shattered the trust that had once been the foundation of their marriage. Atticus's expression was unreadable, a mask of emotions that Emma couldn't decipher. She braced herself for his anger, his accusations, but instead, what came next surprised her. "I knew," Atticus said quietly, his voice tinged with resignation. "I knew something was off, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to see the truth staring me in the face. I thought we had something real, Emma. I thought you loved me." The weight of his words hit Emma like a sledgehammer, the realization of the pain she had caused crashing over her in a tidal wave of regret. She reached out a trembling hand towards Atticus, desperate to bridge the chasm that had opened up between them. "I do love you, Atticus," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but please, please forgive me. I'll do anything to make it right, to earn back your trust." And as the tears streamed down her face, Emma knew that the weight of guilt would be a burden she would carry for the rest of her days, a constant reminder of the choices she had made and the consequences she now faced. Alex sat at the dinner table, feeling like a pawn in a game he never signed up to play. As he observed the tension between Atticus and Emma, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease wash over him. Being caught in the middle of a marital dispute was not how he envisioned spending his evening. He had known Emma for years, their friendship blossoming into something more over time. But now, seeing her husband's hurt and betrayal laid bare, Alex couldn't help but question the choices that had led him to this moment. Was his love for Emma worth the pain it was causing others? Was he willing to be the catalyst for a family's destruction? As the conversation around the table grew more heated, Alex struggled to find his voice. Should he speak up and defend his relationship with Emma, or should he retreat and spare Atticus further anguish? The weight of his decision hung heavy in the air, suffocating him with its implications. Caught between loyalty to Emma and guilt towards Atticus, Alex grappled with conflicting emotions. He never intended to be the wedge that drove a wedge between a husband and wife, yet here he was, an unwilling participant in a drama he never wanted to be a part of. As the evening wore on, Alex realized that there were no easy answers. Love had led him down a path fraught with moral ambiguity, and now he had to face the consequences of his actions. Would he emerge unscathed from this ordeal, or would he be forever haunted by the choices he made at that fateful dinner table? Caught in the middle of a love triangle that threatened to unravel a family, Alex knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But as he looked into Emma's eyes, he also knew that his feelings for her were undeniable. In that moment, he made a silent vow to navigate the storm ahead with integrity and compassion, no matter the cost. The evening had come to an end, leaving behind a trail of shattered emotions and unanswered questions. As Atticus, Emma, and Alex sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of the evening's events hung heavy in the air. The dinner that was meant to be a simple gathering had turned into a catalyst for introspection and self-discovery. Atticus found himself grappling with a mix of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal. He couldn't shake the image of Emma and Alex together, their secret now exposed for all to see. As he replayed the events of the evening in his mind, he realized that their marriage had been built on a foundation of lies and deceit. The trust he had placed in Emma had been shattered, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about their relationship. Emma, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt and regret. She had never intended for things to spiral out of control, but her actions had led them to this moment of reckoning. As she looked at Atticus, his eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and disappointment, she knew that she had caused irreparable damage to their marriage. She couldn't undo the past, but she was determined to make amends and rebuild the trust that had been broken. Alex sat quietly, feeling like a pawn caught in the middle of a game he never wanted to play. He had never intended to come between Atticus and Emma, but his feelings for her had clouded his judgment. As he watched the couple navigate the aftermath of their revelation, he realized the impact his presence had on their lives. He knew that he had to take responsibility for his actions and find a way to move forward, even if it meant stepping away from the woman he loved. As the night drew to a close, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The dinner had brought to light the cracks in their relationships, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths and face the consequences of their actions. It was a night they would never forget, a turning point that would shape the course of their lives in ways they had never imagined. In the days that followed, Atticus, Emma, and Alex each embarked on a journey of self-discovery and reflection. They learned valuable lessons about honesty, trust, and the importance of open communication in a relationship. The dinner had been a wake-up call, a stark reminder that secrets have a way of coming to light and that true love requires transparency and vulnerability. As they navigated the aftermath of that fateful evening, they made a pact to always be honest with each other, to communicate openly and honestly, and to never let their fears and insecurities drive them apart. It was a long and difficult road ahead, but they were determined to rebuild what had been broken and create a stronger, more resilient bond built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. The evening had come to an end, leaving behind a trail of shattered emotions and unanswered questions. As Atticus, Emma, and Alex sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of the evening's events hung heavy in the air. The dinner that was meant to be a simple gathering had turned into a catalyst for introspection and self-discovery. Atticus found himself grappling with a mix of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal. He couldn't shake the image of Emma and Alex together, their secret now exposed for all to see. As he replayed the events of the evening in his mind, he realized that their marriage had been built on a foundation of lies and deceit. The trust he had placed in Emma had been shattered, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about their relationship. Emma, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt and regret. She had never intended for things to spiral out of control, but her actions had led them to this moment of reckoning. As she looked at Atticus, his eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and disappointment, she knew that she had caused irreparable damage to their marriage. She couldn't undo the past, but she was determined to make amends and rebuild the trust that had been broken. Alex sat quietly, feeling like a pawn caught in the middle of a game he never wanted to play. He had never intended to come between Atticus and Emma, but his feelings for her had clouded his judgment. As he watched the couple navigate the aftermath of their revelation, he realized the impact his presence had on their lives. He knew that he had to take responsibility for his actions and find a way to move forward, even if it meant stepping away from the woman he loved. As the night drew to a close, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The dinner had brought to light the cracks in their relationships, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths and face the consequences of their actions. It was a night they would never forget, a turning point that would shape the course of their lives in ways they had never imagined. In the days that followed, Atticus, Emma, and Alex each embarked on a journey of self-discovery and reflection. They learned valuable lessons about honesty, trust, and the importance of open communication in a relationship. The dinner had been a wake-up call, a stark reminder that secrets have a way of coming to light and that true love requires transparency and vulnerability. As they navigated the aftermath of that fateful evening, they made a pact to always be honest with each other, to communicate openly and honestly, and to never let their fears and insecurities drive them apart. It was a long and difficult road ahead, but they were determined to rebuild what had been broken and create a stronger, more resilient bond built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect.